we have been leapfrogged by others, by digital currency, by digital Chinese currency. Why? Because, frankly, our central bank has been slow. And there's an appointment coming in January of 22. The president's got to decide whether to change over who's leading the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve runs our payment system. And I think we need to move that Federal Reserve into the modern era.
What about in 5 minutes if we hear that the world is trading oil in this digital yuan? What does that do to our economy?
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And you know I come back with that video just to make you think. And we see fiat currencies in chaos. And we know the currency war is about to begin. So therefore we can have the rise of the digital economy along with the digital assets. And we're watching right before our eyes the fall of the United States dollar, the world reserve currency, and the rise of China's digital yuan. And we know China's yuan has been devalued and manipulated on purpose for exports. And these corporations, the big corporations, were benefiting. And we know from history we gave China all of our technology, the supercomputers. I've done plenty of videos on it. And they just happened to be mining Bitcoin at the time when Bitcoin was at its heights. And we know why. They're leading us into the fourth industrial revolution where the robots, algorithms, and drones take over the economy, pay each other with crypto, and the sheep go inside the metaverse. And we know the NWO caused the problem. Wait for the reaction and run in with the solution. And who's in charge of all this? That's right, the banks, the Fed, the central banks are causing all this chaos. They printed 20% of all the U.S. dollars in existence in 1 year, which caused all this inflation and changed people's behaviors. People now are used to sitting at home getting free money, and we know that's a setup for universal basic income. 2023 and 2024, we're going to see mass layoffs, and the NWO is going to run in with that solution and airdrop that free money. But little do the people know, they will have 3 to 6 months to spend that money, or poof, it's gone. And remember, the Crypto Teacher told you because he knows. When it comes to the New World Order, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
Professor, always great to have you on. In your view, what are we at a greater risk of? And you know, the Fed, they're in charge, and they're the ones that are calling the shots here. Is it more likely the Fed is too tough and too tight for too long, or is it more likely at this point that they waffle and don't have the resolve necessary to really vanquish inflation? Are they equal?
No, I think the former is more of a risk. I think they're talking way too tough. The Fed funds futures market now in May, 475. I think that's very much too tight given the forward-looking actual rate of inflation, not necessarily what we see in backward-looking, BLS statistics, but forward-looking. As I've mentioned many times before, home prices declining, commodity prices declining, freight rates declining, all the way up and down. We see declines, not rises. And I think that, and look at the dollar, as Mike has just said. I mean, the dollar is showing how tight the Fed actually is. Take a look at the money supply. We're going to get it tomorrow, monthly money supply. 1 o'clock, people don't talk about it, but that was the clue to why we had so much inflation over the last 2 years. And that has stopped, not only stopped dead in its tracks, actually declined from March in the first time since World War II. We've had such a protracted decline. So the Fed's talk and the tightening is so extreme that I think that the risk of recession is much higher than waffling on the inflation.
You and I are kind of in the same camp there, and I think that the fear of ending up like Arthur Burns or whomever you want to pick back prior to Volcker, I think that's so front and center with the current chair, that could end up with a policy mistake. Plus, getting burned on the transitory side of things and being so wrong initially, you could end up making a policy error by just being burned by that. Could you not?
Absolutely.
And that's happening?
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I look back at Burns. They kept on pouring money in. Commodities were kept on going up. We didn't see the dollar soaring like we did. I mean, all of a sudden, they're worried about what happened to Arthur Burns. The situation is totally different right now than it was back then. I mean, the Fed's tightening and their talk of super tightening has just pushed the markets way too extreme. And as I said, my feeling is that as you said and as I said a year ago in September, they said no inflation was a problem at all. By the way, Chairman Powell talked quite a bit about the JOLTS data, job opening and labor turnover data, how tight it is and how we have to tighten. The interesting thing is I look back a year ago, September, it was exactly as tight as it is today, and he never said anything about inflation. So all of a sudden, what's caused him to change his mind that the same data, and yet all the, on the JOLTS, which is not what he's pointing to, and every other data going down has suddenly made inflation a threat, when a year ago, when everything was booming, he said inflation was no threat. I mean, honestly, Chairman Powell, I think, should offer the American people an apology for such poor monetary policy that he's pursued and the Fed has pursued over the last 2 years.
In real time. But don't we have the example of that period from 83 through a couple of years ago, that 25 years of economic expansion? We had only 2 downturns. They were both very shallow and very brief. And what you had was Paul Volcker, whom Carter appointed, but Reagan gave the freedom actually to wring inflation out of the currency. He did that by the mid-'80s. The economy takes off. Alan Greenspan does a reasonably good job. And then at the end, there's too much money but maybe 5 years of getting it wrong. So
what Volcker did was undo the harm that previous Federal Reserves had done,
including Arthur Burns.
Yeah, unfortunately, who was my teacher and one whom I much admired.
Right. So, but what would you replace it with? How would the currency? How would the currency run?
We would replace it. We got to replace it with what existed when it was created,
which was the gold standard.
Well, it may be the gold standard, but maybe not. But there's no evidence that what would you replace it things always bother me.
They do?
When someone removes the cancer, what do you replace it with?
We're going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
This effort, and China has big plans for this. They intend to seed their digital yuan into the global environment by giving it away to visitors at next winter's Olympics. When they arrive at the airport, they're going to get yuan digital wallets. They're going to receive digital yuan. They're going to use it throughout their visits to Beijing, and then they're going to take it back to their home countries. They see this as a huge advantage. Why? Because who controls the underlying protocols, who controls the underlying standards of the future of money will control the future of money.
Most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids' books. You know, I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York from COVID-33. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.